With sticks in hand and passion inside, we'll skate like lightning with pride on our side. Skate hard, play smart, show no fear. We are the warriors, the moment is near. On this frozen stage, we're kings of the night. With thunderous hits and goals in our sight. In the heart of the battle, we rise and we shine. Together as one, we're forever aligned.
Yo, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the NHL segment of the All Sports Podcast. This is Alejandro Rodriguez, back to you with another episode with the man, Senor Cody. What's going on, dude?
How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. You know, we're not hanging out today. We actually don't work today. So it's a great day to talk some hockey.
Blessing and a curse.
I know, right? Alrighty, man.
Guys, if you're listening, thank you for coming back for another episode. Today we are going to talk about the bottom teams from last year, teams that just bottom of the barrel. They did horrendous in wins. We're probably also going to talk a little bit about some teams that just missed the cut, and then we'll also look at some projected lineups for this upcoming season as well.
Alrighty, so where do you want to start?
So let's take a look at some of the bottom teams. So we're looking at San Jose Sharks. We're looking at the Blackhawks, the Ducks. The Coyotes didn't do too bad last year. And then if we're looking at the East, really it was just the Canadians and the Blue Jackets who just had like a terrible year.
Yeah, because from what I'm seeing here, the Senators and the Penguins kind of had like 38 wins and 37 wins respectively.
Yeah, Philly and the Penguins, they tied for wins last year, 1 point apart, so that was a really close battle. Sabres, they fell a little bit farther behind, but and the Devils, man, they were a really good team 2 years ago, and last year they really fell behind. I know they had some injuries going on. They were having trouble with their goaltending, so they did make some changes to that. We'll see what they can do this year. I think it's definitely going to be a better year for them this year than it was last. We also got the Coyotes, who are no longer the Coyotes.
It's the Utah Hockey Club, which we spoke
Utah
about.
Hockey Club. I love the name.
I told you, simple is always better.
Yeah, I think they're talking about coming up with a name. I think this is just because they didn't have one. Kind of like in football, what do we have? The Washington football team. It was.
And before they changed it to the Commanders.
To the Commanders, yeah. So I think it's that type of situation, and we'll see what they come up with.
By the way, just to let you know, I had a couple of listeners reach out on the X and say that they have been enjoying our segments. So, you know, kudos to you, my good sir, for pulling out some great content.
Yeah, man, only better stuff to come. You know, we'll definitely get better, like fine wine. We're gonna age well.
Maybe we do an episode when we start doing video that we could just have a wine next to us. We just sip some wine and talk some hockey.
And we'll talk about the wine too.
And obviously we can't not talk about that.
By our sommelier, Alejandro.
Hey, listen. I just got my introductory. Okay, I'm not there yet, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
More than I do at this point.
Alrighty, so we in the first episode that we jumped on, we talked about the San Jose Sharks. Right, and we talked about, you know, that they got the number 1 overall pick this past draft, and they got Celebrini, and you know
we did talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, we were talking about what type of impact he'll have, you know, moving forward, especially with this being his first year. This preseason that I've kind of been watching, I've kind of seen. I mean, like I said, it is always very difficult to learn how the game flows when you're watching it for the first time. I know that they themselves played the Ducks, I believe.
In the first preseason?
No, I believe it was the last preseason game that I saw. I think it was yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. They played the Utah Hockey Club. They did lose though, but Celebrini did have 2 shots on goal. And just watching some of the highlights from the game, you kind of could tell who was new and who wasn't.
Yeah, so they got, we're still in preseason, so they're playing some of their rookies who probably won't be seeing the team this year, but they're going to go back to their clubs with a little bit more knowledge, and probably a little bit more drive as well, because they want to get up to the big leagues, Celebrini, I'm looking now, he had, I believe, 10 minutes of ice time, which isn't huge. He was on the lower end for the team, so I tried to find the lineup, and I can't find it anywhere. I didn't get a chance to actually watch the game, so I'm not sure if he was second line, third line, fourth line. I have no idea, but looking at the other forwards' time on ice, pretty much doubling his time on ice. So I don't think he got the full chance that he needed to, but he's gonna shine. He's gonna come through. He'll have a little breakthrough, and they also have some veterans on the team now. They're in a huge rebuild. They have Barclay Goodrow from the Rangers. They also have Alex Wenberg from the Rangers. 2 guys that finished with us in the playoffs last year. They did some big things for the Rangers. Goodrow closed out 2 or 3 games in the playoffs with game-winning goals. And Alex Wenberg, he was brought in at the trade deadline, I believe, and he was a good center for us also. So that's a couple good names that they have there. They also got Toffoli from Carolina, another big player there. So they're not looking too bad at this point. They have a little bit of depth. They have some older players, some guys that have been around for a little bit, and then they have some younger guys like Celebrini who are trying to make their name in the league. So we'll see what happens there.
Speaking of your team, they did win yesterday too. They beat the Devils.
I watched it. I watched it last night. They ended up scoring a couple, I think, in the third period to just close it out. But it was only by 1 goal. It wasn't a huge performance, but yeah, the Devils looked pretty good.
Yeah, kind of looking at what you were talking about, how time on the ice, I am noticing a trend here. Most of them, with the exception of one player who only spent basically 2.5 minutes on the ice, everybody's rounding out 15 plus minutes.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not sure if they had him on a third or fourth line, or if he got a big penalty, or I didn't get a chance to watch the game, so I can't really speak on that too much.
Could that also potentially mean that the players that are getting all of these times, all this time, are they the ones who are some of the veterans who are trying to see how the new players coming in are working? Is that kind of how that works?
They may be doing that. They may be just giving, because they may just be giving some of these rookies a little more ice time.
It's almost like an integration process, it seems.
Yeah.
They're trying to see where they fit in.
It's not really looking like that though, because all these veterans on the team, they have a lot of ice time. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but we shouldn't spend too much time on that.
So outside of this, the Sharks, I was noticing that the Blackhawks obviously weren't doing that well. Didn't do that well either last season.
No, they had trouble with goaltending. They were getting scored on a lot. They finished, the Sharks finished with a goal differential of minus 150, so they got scored on 150 goals more than they scored.
Jesus.
The Blackhawks were at minus 111, so they were getting scored on a lot. They did bring Connor Bedard in last year, and he definitely shined. He won the Calder Trophy last year, so he was doing his thing. He was scoring goals. He was getting a lot of assists, and he really stood out on that team. So Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what they do this year. They could have a chance. They picked up a couple guys on the trade frenzy, the free agency trades. So
Check out last episode if you didn't hear us talking about that.
yeah, so they got Teravainen from Carolina, and they also picked up Tyler Bertuzzi from Toronto. I think that's just two of their big names. Yeah, that's about it. They picked up a couple other guys too, but not as big guys. Smaller contracts there.
Well, the good thing is that, you know, even though, I mean, it's a new season, so obviously a lot of players are going to be, you know, trying to integrate with each other, trying to make, you know, get each other back in line to how, obviously, they want to put last season behind them. So it would make a lot of sense why, you know.
Yeah, and what were they doing all summer? You know, they're looking back on last year and they're making changes and they're working on different plays and cycling and all that stuff, and they're going to try to work Bedard into all of that. So
yeah, the good thing is they have a solid core piece in Bedard that kind of seems like that's a nice piece to like work around.
Yeah, for sure.
So I also saw here that the Montreal Canadiens, as well as the Ottawa Senators, also were at the bottom of the league last year as well.
Yeah.
And don't the Canadians have the most Stanley Cup trophies?
Yeah, I think they do.
Something like that,
right? They have a curse.
So
the Canadian team has won in, 30 years?
Oh, Lord.
I want to say.
Because I keep hearing that too, you know, like all the Canadian team. I mean, we touched a little bit about it last episode, but like this whole like Canada curse is getting a little insane, right? Don't you think at some point one of these Canadian teams are going to break through and just, you know?
Well, it was supposed to happen last year. The Oilers were supposed to take it, you know, and they just fell behind just a little bit. I think they ended up losing by 1 goal. So
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I kind of felt like, because obviously we were watching the Stanley Cup, and at work, of all places, and I kind of noticed that like at some point during the series, it was kind of like Edmonton was like losing their steamrolling that they were doing through the playoffs.
Well, the first 3 games. They couldn't finish. They weren't playing as good as they needed to. But then they came back for 3 games straight, which took it to a game 7. It was about to be like the biggest upset you could see. You know, they're down by 3 games in the finals. Then they win 3 straight. All they had to do was win that 4th game, and they had it in the bag.
Well, they would have done the impossible.
Last game. It came down to the game 7. And it was a really close game. It could have been anyone's game. So, I mean, that's just how hockey works in the playoffs. A lot of the times it comes down to game 7, and it's anyone's game, you know?
Yeah, because I can remember that game 7. Nobody was working. We all were just glued to the TV because we were like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And obviously all of our guests were like freaking out.
I mean, I'm a little bit biased about it too. Like, I like McDavid a lot. He's such a good player. But I'm biased because I didn't want Florida to win. I have a grudge against Florida just because I'm a Rangers fan. So
it's okay. But like I said, it's not like you lost. It's not like your team lost to the losers or to the runner-up.
Yeah.
You know, you lost to the eventual
the best team in the league.
Yeah, you lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champions. But now that just makes the drive even bigger now, because especially for the Rangers, just New York in general had such a great run last year that it's just like you can only go up.
Yeah. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if we got into it on the podcast, but Sean Monahan, who got traded to Columbus.
Yes.
I heard somewhere that he's been doing like amazing on that team.
I mean, can you blame him? Oh.
No, I can't blame him because he was basically brought onto that team to play with Johnny Gaudreau, who just recently lost. they meshed really well together. I think it was in Winnipeg, and I think he's playing for Johnny. I think he's just really gonna put all he can into this just to live up to his buddy's name.
I think it may be. Wait, was it Winnipeg or Calgary?
Calgary, yeah, you got
Calgary.
it right.
Got it.
Yeah, so they were line mates. They meshed really well together on that team, and I mean, basically, they brought him in because they thought he would mesh well with Johnny Gaudreau.
I mean, it does make sense when you play with teammates who, and then you find out later on that they're no longer with us. You do kind of have like that new sense of like purpose, I guess. Especially with the fact,
kind of excited to come play with him.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
To Columbus did horrible last year, but maybe there was like some hope that they could turn the team around a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to touch upon. That he was about to go back with his buddy, his friend, his former teammate, and then this terrible accident happens, and now it's just him. So now it's just, he's probably going to be playing out of his mind. He's definitely going to be a player that I'm going to want to keep an eye on, especially knowing with everything that has happened.
Right. It's just something that you want to know the outcome of.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm very happy that he's doing well,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, who knows how he's feeling, but he's just got to concentrate on his game.
Yeah, and just keep the goal the same, do it for Johnny, right? Johnny would have wanted him to, help this team, propel them back into the win column, and put them above 500.
That's what we hope. So who else do you want to look at here? We looked at Montreal. We looked at the Blue Jackets. We looked at San Jose, the Blackhawks, the Ducks, the Coyotes. We had the Kraken there too. They didn't do so bad. I mean, 34 wins, 35 losses, pretty much even there. But they had 13 overtime losses. So they got 13 points off of overtime losses last year, which is one of the highest in the league because the only teams you have above that are going to be the Canadiens, who had 16 overtime losses, and the Islanders had 16 overtime losses. And then the dang Bruins had 15 overtime losses, and they clinched second place in the division.
Which is a little crazy, but it seems like, right? Because I'm still trying to figure out how all these things work, like with overtime losses, like the points. I'm noticing that, like, in the win-loss column, like, there are teams with lower wins but have had more points. So I'm still trying to, like, gauge as to how the entire system works. But, yeah, I mean, like... So, like, for example, the Islanders, right? They clinched the playoff berth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had 39 wins, right? For example, the Capitals, the Washington Capitals, had 40 wins.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, but because they had more overtime losses, they've had more points added, which put them 3 points higher than the Capitals.
Yeah, so, I mean, just in case anyone doesn't know, a regular overtime win will be 2 points. A regular time loss will be 0 points. And then an overtime loss will be 1 point. So if you lose in sudden death overtime or in a shootout, you're just getting 1 point for that game. So you're getting rewarded for losing just because you made it past regulation time.
Well,
it's good. It's good for the teams because you're going into overtime. You're tied up. Either team can take momentum at that point, and it kind of makes overtime really interesting to watch. Interesting because it's also 3-on-3 for overtime, but the game could go either way at that point. You want to win because you want the 2 points, but if you lose, you're still going to get that point. And, I mean, they can accumulate over the season, and teams might not even be thinking about it, and then look what happens. The Islanders got 16 overtime losses, and that saved them. That got them third place, not even a wild card spot, third place in the division.
Well, now knowing this type of information, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on how, the point system works and how, these things, because like I told you last week, I'm definitely doing a deep dive on how the NHL works. So I'm going to be like trying to like, you're going to see me at work, like trying to figure out in the corner, like, okay, so this team got this many points because they lost like this. You'll see me at some point, like getting crazy with all this type of information.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing hockey, so I understand all the rules and regulations and stuff like that. So it just comes very quick and easy to me. But if you're new to the sport, it's definitely a lot to take in. I mean, it's pretty much the same structure as basketball, but there's a lot to take in. You got blue line, you got center ice, you got hash marks, you got circles, you got goal line. So if you don't know these terms, these are all things. You have icing. If you don't know what icing is, that's something you need to learn. Also, offsides. There's a lot to it.
All I know is that hockey's legalized fighting outside of the UFC.
Yeah. Except in the playoffs.
Yeah, except in the playoffs, because you don't want to get suspended, right? You get suspended for fighting or something like that?
I get so frustrated watching the playoffs too, because like regular season, if somebody takes like a dirty hit or like a low jab or whatever, like there's a consequence. Like someone's gonna come up and fight you. But in the playoffs, nobody fights. They just push and shove, and it's just like schoolyard play to me, like everyone just pushing and shoving and talking smack to each other. It just gets a little frustrating.
Yeah,
because people can be dirty and grimy, and there's no consequences for it.
Well, every sport kind of has that type of system where you got, some players who are known to be dirty. They'll do a dirty play knowing that the other person won't retaliate because, they don't want to get suspended. I mean, then you just got people who just don't care. Like, in basketball, there was a really major incident called the Malice at the Palace. And it was a fight that broke out between the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit Pistons. This was, I think it was in 2004 or between 2003 and 2004. I don't have the exact year. But anyway, the point of the matter was that you just have people who just don't care.
Yeah.
They'll just they'll go on and have a full-on brawl just for no reason.
Take the fine. Eat it.
And the suspension, because they got suspended too.
Suspension, yeah. Got to answer the coach.
All right, guys. We are literally T-minus 10 days before the regular season. I don't know about you, Cody, because I know you obviously enjoy this time of year, but I'm also excited of it too. Being able to say, hey, listen, the NHL season is literally in 10 days. That's just crazy. I could already feel.
We have this is the best time of year. We have 3 great things going on. So hockey is just starting, basketball is just starting, and then we have the playoffs from the MLB also. So. And
also the playoffs for the MLS.
And the MLS. I'm not big on MLS.
It's all right.
I'm sure you're up on it.
So I'm going to be the first to drop this information now. But before next week's episode, or probably by next week's episode, you will be hearing the first episode of the MLS and the MLB. I am very excited to announce that I will be hosting those 2 segments. So if you definitely are into baseball and you want to start talking about playoff baseball, or if you're a huge soccer fan and you want to talk about the MLS, be on the lookout next week. We're going to drop those episodes too. So we got a lot of interesting things coming up.
Good stuff.
Breaking news. Y'all are the first to hear it. Anything else you want to talk about, Senor Cody?
So let's we did talk about all the teams who were at the bottom. Did we really get into who just missed the cut last year? I know we looked at Detroit a little bit because I was really pushing for Detroit. I wanted to see them come out over the Capitals because I don't know. I just wanted to see them. Patrick Kane's playing for the Red Wings, so I kind of wanted to see him go up against the Rangers in the first round because he did finish the previous season with us. But I just didn't want to see the Capitals go in. And then once they did make it to the first round, they really didn't do anything. The Rangers swept them, and Ovechkin had 0 points or something. So that wasn't
ideal.
Entertaining.
Yeah, we as sports people like to see the close games. We don't like blowouts. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it just kind of a little bit of a false sense of hope, because if you just sweep a team in the first round of the playoffs, you're going into the second round against a harder team. You don't want to go into that situation with just a like a Mosey, like we got this or anything like that. You got to fight harder and harder each level you go up in the playoffs. So you don't really want to get comfortable in that first round. You kind of want to just be ready to grind. And that may have been, it could have been a reason the Rangers didn't go all the way to the finals, because maybe they got a little too comfortable in the first and second round, taking out the Capitals and the Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes are a great playoff team, but we took them, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, other than the Detroit Red Wings, I was also kind of noticing that the St. Louis Blues also kind of were on the cusp of getting in there.
Yeah, so the St. Louis Blues were a little bit farther behind. I mean, they were 6 points behind Vegas. I don't think they would have surpassed Vegas or the Predators. That's 3 wins right there. If they could have maybe snuck those 3 wins in a little earlier in the season, maybe they would have had a fighting chance there. But I don't know. Besides that, I think Nashville's going to have a much better year this year with the big trades that they just made.
That's true.
They were the first wild card, which is not a bad spot to be in. But I think they'll be in the top 3 this year. We'll see if they can push ahead. The Kings are projected to not do as good this year, so maybe the Predators can take that spot.
Well, let's see. I mean, with like we talked about in last week's episode, with Nashville kind of going out of their way and making, spending all this money to get their three-headed monster. I mean, when they didn't have them, they basically got into the wild card. Having these 3 vets, with one of the younger guys, probably could potentially push them over the hump and secure them an actual guaranteed spot in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, they had 47 wins, so it's not bad at all. Boston had 47 wins. The Maple Leafs had 46 wins, and they got 3rd place in their division. The Rangers had 55 wins, and they got the President's Trophy. So we're not talking about like that many more wins. Like 7 wins less than the Rangers. They're right there. They're right there. Well, they're definitely going to be a team to keep an eye on. So
Yep, that's the talk of the town right there.
I will say this too. By next week's episode, I will have a team that I'm going to start following.
Okay.
I will say that right now.
I'm excited to hear who you go with. I always, since Vegas came into the picture, I was always kind of drawn to them a little bit, and my fiance always jokes about that would be my backup team if I decide, like, screw the Rangers.
Which I don't think you'll ever say, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think my thing has always been you could always have an Eastern team and a Western team.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
okay, so like the Rangers are my team, right?
Yeah.
But I do have teams that I like on the West as well. I'm not opposed to a couple teams on the West.
I mean, next week I'll do my official teams of who I'll follow in the East and the West, and I'll stick to those 2 teams so that hopefully they play each other in the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, so you come to me with that, and I'll give you my feedback.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
And then, we're going to do our episode next week. We're going to be, like, days away from the start of the regular season. So, we'll see what we're going to talk about next week. We'll see, maybe...
We'll keep it a mystery.
Yeah, we'll keep it a mystery. Maybe we'll talk about, like, who can come out, off the jump and just, like, win. We'll see.
We'll see which team can sucker punch the league.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, guys. This has been a very eventful episode. Cody, it's always a pleasure talking to you, my friend.
Pleasure, man.
It's great to hear the feedback from the fans who have been listening to us since episode 1. We're obviously going to take all of your feedback and go over everything so that we can cover everything for everybody. Please follow us on the X, NHL on X _. Again, that's NHL on X _. Follow the podcast on X. Is all sports _pod. Again, that's all sports _pod. And we cannot wait to talk to you all next week. We will literally, like Cody said, be days away from the NHL regular season. So let's gear up.
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening.
Later.
Goals in our sight.